Hello and welcome back to the Tech Blackboard. Today is our part 5 of our AZ-104 Real Exam Question and Answer Exam series. And once again, I have got 10 very latest and important questions for you, starting from question number 31 to question number 40. In addition to YouTube, you can now connect to the Tech Blackboard at Facebook page as well. So here is my Facebook page, which is www.facebook.com/thetechblackboard. Earlier in this series, we have already covered 30 very important questions with their answers. These 30 questions were covered in part 2, part 3 and part 4, with each part containing 10 questions each. In addition to this, in part 1 we covered some very important topics around AZ-104 which you must know before attempting AZ-104 exam certification. So if you have missed watching any of these parts, then do check them out so that you don't miss any important questions or concept on AZ-104. The links for all the earlier parts are available in the description box. If you are liking my videos, then please press that like button as it motivates me and help my videos to reach to a larger audience. Do not miss to subscribe and share the channel as well. And as always, to help you learn in the offline mode as well, here is the giveaway for the part 5. In this giveaway, I will give you a PDF versions of all the questions covered in this part 5 with their answers if you tell me the correct answers for question number 31 and question number 40. You will find the answers to these questions in this video itself. So do not skip any part of this video and watch the video till the very end and secure your PDF file. So let's begin our part 5 with very interesting question 31. The question says that you have an Azure subscription named subscription 1 that contains the resources shown in the following table. Now here you can see we have name of the resource, we have type of the resource, then we have region, and then we have resource group. What we have is we have one resource group called RG1, then again we have one more resource group RG2, and then we have a vault 1 which is recovery service vault. Moving ahead, the question says that you create virtual machines in subscription 1 as shown in the following table. So you can see here we have a lot of virtual machines. 3 of them are Windows Server based and the last 3 are Ubuntu based. And you can see that all the virtual machines are distributed across these two resource group RG1 and RG2, and they are also spread across the regions West Europe and North Europe. Now let's move ahead to see what the question is really asking. The question asks you that you plan to use Vault 1 for the backup of as many virtual machines as possible. Which virtual machines can be backed up to Vault 1? Your options are VM1 only, VM3 and VMC, VM1, VM2, VM3, VMA, VMB or VMC. Then we have VM1, VM3, VMA and VMC only. And the last one is VM1 and VM3 only. So which one of these combination of virtual machines do you think can be backed up in Vault 1? Before even answering the question, let's first understand what is a recovery service vault. So this is the Microsoft site that gives an overview on recovery services vault. You can read here that this article describes the features of a recovery service vault. A recovery service vault is a storage entity in Azure that houses data. The data is typically copies of data or configuration information for virtual machines, workloads, servers, and workstations. You can use recovery service vault to hold backup for data for various Azure services like IaaS, virtual machines, Linux or Windows, and Azure SQL databases. So one point is already clear that we can use Azure Recovery Service Vaults for both Linux and Windows machine. Now that from the Microsoft documentation, it's already clear that both Windows or Linux based machines can be backed up using Azure Recovery Services Vault. So what is the correct answer? The correct answer for this question is VM1, 3, A and C. Now let's understand why this is the correct answer. So you can see here that VM1, VM3, VMA and VMC, all of these virtual machines reside in West Europe. So we have VM1 West Europe, 3 also in West Europe, A also in West Europe, and then similarly C is also in West Europe. So what does that mean? That implies that when you have to take a backup using Azure Recovery Services Vault, both Azure Recovery Service Vault and the virtual machines should always be in the same Azure region. And we saw that Azure Recovery Service Vault is also in West Europe, and our virtual machines, those who reside in West Europe, only those can be backed up using this Azure service. And that's the reason that we have chosen VM1, 3, A and C. Moving ahead, we have question number 32. The question says that you have an Azure Kubernetes service AKS cluster named AKS1. You need to configure cluster name autoscaler for AKS1. Which two tools should you use? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. So it's very important that you understand that you have to choose two tools because only then it will make a complete solution. Your options are the kubectl command, AZ-AKS command, set AZ-VM cmdelete, Azure portal, or the last option is set AZ-AKS cmdelete. It's very important that you're noting in the question itself that we are talking about the autoscale in AKS, which essentially means that we are talking about nodes. That's the reason the correct answer for this question is option B, the AZ-AKS command and the Azure portal. Reason being that you use AZ-AKS command for the autoscaling of the nodes and then you use Azure portal to scale out the nodes. In order to make this more clearer, I have put across the details of all the commands that are listed here. So let's read out each command. So kubectl command is used for configuring Kubernetes and not AKS cluster. And that's the reason we have not chosen this one. Moving ahead, we have the AZ-AKS command is used for AKS cluster configuration. That's why this is one of the chosen option. Moving ahead, the set AZ-VM cmdelete, and that is used for the VMs. So we are not talking about VMs here. We are talking about the Azure Kubernetes services. Then the last command that we have is set AZ-AKS that creates or updates an AKS cluster. And the correct cmdelete is set AZ-AKS cluster. Now I hope that all these one-liners on each of these commands will surely help you understand these commands better. There is a lot of great Microsoft documentation available on each command. But in case you still have any confusion on any of these commands, do let me know in the comment section. Now let's move ahead with question number 33. The question says that you have an Azure subscription named subscription 1. Subscription 1 contains a resource group named RG1. Now RG1 contains resources that were deployed using templates. You need to view the date and time when the resources were created in RG1. And the solution given here is that from subscription blade, you select subscription and then click on resource provider. Does this meet the goal? The correct answer for this question is no. This is not the valid option to see the date and time of the resources that were created in RG1. So what is the correct option? Let's check out the other variations of the same questions to find out the correct answer. The other two variations are presented in question number 34 and question number 35. Both the question 34 and 35 are exactly same as question number 33. However, the solution given are different. In question number 34, the solution is that from RG1 blade, you click automation script. Does this meet the goal? Or in the question number 35, we have from the RG1 blade, you click deployments. Does this meet the goal? So which one amongst all these three solutions given here is a correct solution? Let's go to the Microsoft site to find out the correct answer. So here is the Microsoft site which talks about create and deploy your first ARM template. And if you remember the question, we deployed the resources using the template. So you can read this page in detail. However, the section I want to bring your notice to is first this one, that how you can create your first template. But this is not where our answer is. So we will scroll down a little more and then we come to a section which calls verify deployment. And in the verified deployment, you can see that you need to go to the Azure portal, and from the Azure portal, you have to go to the resource groups. It's very important that you're noting that we are now in resource group. So in the resource group, you can see the default name of the resource group is my resource group, which is shown here. And then in the fourth step, it says, notice in the upper right corner of the overview, the status of deployment is displayed, which is here. So you can see here we have deployments and we can also see one succeeded deployment. And if you will click this deployment, then you will be shown all the details related to this deployment, the name of the deployment, the status, whether it succeeded or not, last modified details, and duration and the related events. So the ask of the question was that we want to see date and time of deployment of all the resources using this template. And you can see we have last modified details, which shows all the date and time that we did it in our question as well. And from that understanding from Microsoft documentation, we can easily say the correct answer for this question is the solution given in question number 35, which is from the RG1 blade, you select deployments. Thus, obviously the correct answer for question number 34 is no. Before moving ahead, I just wanted to say that friends, it takes considerable amount of time and effort to find Microsoft documentation to justify each answer and give you an explanation for each question in our exam series. Please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your each like encourages me and ensures that the video is reaching to a greater audience. Do share the videos with everyone having interest in learning Azure Cloud technologies. Your comments and feedbacks give me a chance to understand what you want to see on this channel and help me improve my content. I always make sure to read each of your comments and reply to them. So keep supporting me and I promise to bring the content that helps you grow in your career. Now let's begin with question number 36. The question says that you need to deploy an Azure virtual machine scale set that contains 5 instances as quickly as possible. What should you do? And your options are deploy 5 virtual machines, modify the availability zone setting for each virtual machine. The other option is deploy 5 virtual machine, modify the size setting for each virtual machine, or deploy 1 virtual machine scale set that is set to VM virtual machine orchestration mode. And the last one is deploy 1 virtual machine scale set that is set to scale set VM orchestration mode. The correct answer for this question is option D. Now let's understand why I chose option D as the correct answer. So if you look at the question, it says that you have to deploy 5 virtual machines as quickly as possible. So what do? So whenever you have to do it as quickly as possible, the best option is let Azure to do it. Because letting Azure create virtual machine is much faster than doing it manually. So the best option for Azure to do this is either by ARM template, which of course is not a choice here, or the other option could be virtual machine scale set. Now with this, we can easily rule out option A and option D. And then we are only left out with option C and option D. Now if you look at option C, then in option C you can see it's like a unmanaged scale set where you will be adding manually the virtual machine to the scale set. And this manual intervention makes this option slower, but we want to do it as quickly as possible. And that brings us to the option D, which is a scale set which will be managed by Azure, or you can say option D is a managed scale set by Azure where it is based on configuration set during the setup of virtual machine scale set. And that's the reason behind choosing option D here. Now let's move to the question number 37. The question says that you plan to create Azure web apps shown in the following table. Here you can see we have names of the web app. We have web app 1, 2, 3 and 4. And then we have runtime stack for each web app. We have .NET Core 3.0. We have ASP.NET version 4.7. Then we have PHP 7.3 and then we have Ruby 2.6. The question says that what is the minimum number of app service plans you should create for the web apps? And your options are 1, 2, 3 and 4. And the correct answer for this question is 2. So you have to create minimum of 2 app services. Now let's understand why I chose 2 as a correct option here. So if you look at the runtime stack very carefully, you will realize that .NET Core version 3.0, it can both run on Windows and on Linux. Then we have ASP.NET 4.7, which can also run both on Windows and on Linux. PHP can also run both on Windows and on Linux. And then we have Ruby 2.6, which can only run on Linux. So if you read about app service plan, you will know that you will always need a different app service plan for an operating system. You cannot use same app service plan to run both Windows and Linux. So at the minimum, we would at least need one app service plan for the Windows-based web apps and one app service plan for the Linux-based web apps. And that's the reason I chose minimum number of app service is needed to here. Our next question, question number 38 says that your company wants to share JSON file stored in a container inside a storage account. So here you can see we have a storage account which is named as monthly reports. Then we have a container which is named as April 2022. And then we have a file which is stored in this container and the file name is employeedata.json. And you can see it here as well. We have a storage, we have a container, and then we have a JSON file. Now the question says that what is the correct URL of the file called employeedata.json. So here you can see the different options or the different URLs given for the employeedata.json. You have to tell which is the correct URL to access this file. Now, before answering this question, let's understand the correct hierarchy and how the URLs are built when we are talking about the Azure Storage account. So here I am on the Microsoft documentation that gives you introduction about Azure Blob Storage. And if you will scroll down a little on this page, you can see a hierarchy given here. So first of all, you can see we have storage account on the top, then we have container, and then we have blob. A blob is nothing but the file itself. For example, we can see here the image.jpg and the movie.avi. In our case, it's a JSON file. Now, a very important thing that you should note about storage account is that whatever is your storage account name. So for example, let's say your storage account name is my storage account. Then the URL for the storage account will always be mystorageaccount.blob.core.windows.net. So Microsoft will always suffix blob.core.windows.net with your storage account name. So this is a very important point whenever you're working with storage account, and keep this hierarchy in mind when we go back to our PPT. First we have account, then we have container, and then we have blob. Coming back to our presentation, now we know that first of all in the URL we should have storage account, which should be followed by container name, and then comes the file name. And keeping this hierarchy in mind, the correct answer for this question is option B. So here you can see we have first of all the name of our storage account, which is monthly reports, and then it is followed by blob.core.windows.net as we saw in the Microsoft documentation as well. Then we have /April 2022, which is nothing but our container, and followed by we have our file name, which is employeedata.json. And that's the reason for choosing B as a correct option. Now let's quickly jump to the question number 39, which looks very similar to our previous question number 38. However, this is a little different. So pay attention. So here in this question, it says that your company wants to share the JSON file stored in a container inside a storage account. And as previously, you can see that we have one storage account, then we have a container inside this storage account, and lastly, we have a file which is called employeedata.json. Now the question asks that the company wants to give access to this file to the users. In the previous question, we were talking about the URL. However, this time we are talking about the access of the file. Further, it says that, however, the access to the Azure Storage file employeedata.json should only be provided for 3 days. What should you choose? Your options are access to storage account, access key, shared access signature or SAS, or the last option is Azure Key Vault. And the correct answer for this question is shared access signature. Now let's go to the Microsoft documentation to validate our answer. So this is the Microsoft documentation titled as Grant Limited Access to Azure Storage Resources Using Shared Access Signature. And in the very first paragraph, you can read that a shared access signature provides secure delegated access to resources in your storage account. With a SAS, you have granular control over how a client can access your data. For example, what resources the client may access, what permission they have to those resources, and how long the SAS is valid. And this third option is exactly what we are looking for. In our question also, if you remember correctly, it asks that you only want to give the access for the employee data.json for only 3 days. And that's what this option relates to, how long the SAS is valid. So you have full control over how long this shared access signature or SAS is valid. So as our question asks, you can set number of days for which this SAS should be valid. It could be 1 day, it could be 2 days, more days, less days, or it could be number of hours as well. And thus, shared access signature fits this business case very well. And that brings us to the question number 40, which is our last question for part 5 of our AZ-104 real exam question and answer exam series. So let's read the question. The question says that you have a general purpose V1 Azure Storage account named as Storage 1 that uses locally redundant storage or LRS. You need to ensure that the data in storage account is protected if a zone fails. The solution must minimize cost and administrative effort. What should you do first? So your options are create a new storage account, configure object replication rules, upgrade the account to general purpose V2, or upgrade the account to premium block blob 1, or upgrade the account to premium file shares. So what is the correct answer? To find out the correct answer, this is the Microsoft documentation that talks more about Azure Storage redundancy. You can read quite a lot on storage redundancy on this page, but you have to scroll down quite a little towards the bottom of the page, and then finally you will arrive at the section which talks more about supported storage account types. If you remember the question correctly, it said that data should be protected in the storage account even if the zone fails. So at the minimum, we need ZRS, which is zone redundant storage, because we want to protect the data against zonal failures. So that's why the minimum redundancy need is ZRS. And you can clearly see that the ZRS is in general purpose V2 or version 2. And with that understanding from Microsoft documentation, it's easy to answer this question. So the correct answer for this question is upgrade the account to the general purpose version 2. I hope you like this set of very latest 10 questions in part 5.
If this video has added any value in your learning, a like and subscribe is highly appreciated. Share this video in your family and friends to spread and expand their learning. Your comments and feedback give me a chance to interact with you, and I look forward for them. We will meet again in our next video. Till then, stay fit, keep learning, and thanks for watching.